Hi, my beautiful artists. I hope you guys are having a phenomenal day today. Okay, so the art of communication. Communication can be used in many different forms or ways. Some people prefer to communicate via text, via emails, via handwritten notes, poems, haikus, songs, whatever that form of communication is for you. There are so many different ways of communication. Ask yourself, what is your form of communication? What is your flow to communication? Like I said, it's going to look different for everybody. Everybody's communication is going to be a little bit different, and I think sometimes as human beings, we get a little misconstrued when it comes to communication. And I only say that because sometimes we want communication to be in the form of speech, like the way I'm doing right now. And that's not everybody's strong suit. And a lot of the times we also get so wrapped up in how they said it or when they said it, X, Y, and Z. And you gotta understand that art is unlimited. Art is literally like time, non-linear. You need to identify what's your form of communication. And I don't say that this is the type of communication that you have to use all the time. If anything, switch it up every now and then, try a different form of communication. And honestly, be very clear when you are communicating. Because the thing is, when you are communicating, you can't sit here and say one thing and mean another. And you got to understand, we not mind readers out here. So with that being said, share the form of communication that you use and let that be known to the second or third or fourth party, because again, your form of communication can look so different than the person sitting next to you, and they may not completely fully understand because again, they can't read your mind. They don't know that you prefer to sit here and write it out before you speak it, and I know that it's also going to be challenging for the second, third, fourth party as well, because they're not used to that either. And that is okay. That is the beauty in art. The art of communication comes in so many different ways, so many different forms. And I think we need to start exploring them. We all have different forms of communication. We don't all think the same. We don't all do art the same. And that's the beauty of life, that nothing has to be the same. Nothing has to be one solid color. Nothing has to be one specific art means or one specific song all the time. The communication needs to be very clear, because of the fact that if you're not clear on what you're saying or what you want, then how can you truly get what you want or get your message to be heard the proper way if you can't even find the proper means of transmuting it or writing it or letting it out? I also want you to understand that when you are first starting to find your means of communication, it is okay. It is okay to not feel confident in it. It is okay to feel a little shaky about it. It is okay to honestly not be sure of everything at 100%. However, as long as your intention behind it is clear, then that is truly what really matters. I don't want you guys to sit here and beat yourself up for the minor things. You got to understand, this right here, all of this here is life. It's art. There was no instruction manual for us. Not for your daddy, not for your mama, not for your grandparents, not for the people before them, not for the very first human being to be existed. So with that being said, please stop beating yourself up for the tiny things. You can't change everything all at once. However, you can always take minor baby steps to become a better version of you. And like I said, with communication, it's a big one because we all communicate via speech. However, you also got to think about the blind people. Their form of communication is Braille. Just like people use sign language, you know, not everybody's form of communication is the same, and we have to be okay with that. We have to learn to accept that. And honestly, I low-key kind of wish that I could understand Braille and sign language more, because I feel like those two communities kind of get left out in the dark sometimes, and I think that we need to find more ways to incorporate them. It's not fair to them. Just like you want to be heard, they should also be heard in whatever forms, in whatever means, and however we can, you know. And it's not their fault. It's no one's fault that they were born with different aspects. Learn to communicate. Learn to mean what you communicate. And learn to be okay with the process of learning how to communicate. And for my people who already know how to communicate but need to learn how to manage the communication, you got to understand, we all communicate differently. What you might see as someone being extra could simply mean that this person simply just needs more reassurance, more clarity. And that is okay. It is okay to know what kind of communication you need. And I feel like this is going to help so many situations, so many, whatever it is, honestly, whether if it's work, whether if it's a friendship, whether if it's relationship, any circumstance, to be honest. Because if you think about it, you go to work, you got to communicate to your boss sometimes. You may not see eye to eye with your boss, and that's okay. However, you also need to learn how to communicate with that person without letting your emotions get in the way. And sometimes when we do need to communicate, sometimes it's easier to write them down than it is to say it out loud. Once you have figured out your means of communicating, it'll be easier because you'll be able to express that. So yes, my beautiful artists, learn your form of art when it comes to communication. If it's music, let it out. Put it out. We all want to hear it. There's so many people out here in the world. Somebody's bound to love your art. If it's writing, write that book. Write that poem. Write whatever it is. Let it out. Share it with the world. If you don't want to share it, that is fine. You don't have to. Share it with someone close to you. If you can't even trust them, send it to me. I'll read it myself. If you don't want to send it to me, that is fine. If you want to gatekeep it. That is okay. There is no right, wrong way of communicating. However, you need to learn to communicate clearly with the proper intention behind it. Can't say one thing and mean another, because the person next to you, person behind you, in front of you will not completely understand if you're thinking one thing but saying another. So yes, get clear with your communication. Sit down, figure out what's your best form of communication, and start there. Start small. Start practicing what you're writing. Start practicing what you're singing. Start practicing however your form of communication is. Let it out. And for my community that has to use Braille and has to use sign language, me personally, I want to see more of it. I want to see more content surrounded by these people, because again, they deserve a voice just like all of us. And unfortunately, they weren't given the same gifts we were all given. Just like people who were born with different limbs, they don't have the luxury that some of us have, with 2 arms, 2 hands, 2 feet, 2 legs. So take advantage of your gifts. I know we take it for granted. We take for granted the little things that we do have. So with that being said, my love, my artists, figure out your form of art when it comes to communication. Start evolving it. Start figuring it out. Start playing around with it, because that's the beauty of art. A lot of this we can't just do to do. We have to enjoy the process that comes behind it. So please enjoy the art of communication. It will become naturally the more you do it. Be patient with yourself and learn to communicate. Bye, my beautiful artists. Have a phenomenal day.